Falling too fast to prepare for this. Tripping in the world could be dangerous. Everybody circling his vultures.
All right, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us today for the fourth event of our 12-part Sports Tech and Innovation Series powered by FanSaves. Our Sports Tech and Innovation Series is a bi-weekly virtual event focusing on the changing landscapes of the sports industry through technology and innovative solutions, which are overcoming traditional barriers. Throughout this series, we'll hear from some of the top executives and industry leaders and learn from their perspectives on how technology is making an impact within their organizations. We'll also hear from some of the hottest emerging sports tech startups who are driving change and revolutionizing the traditional sports industry. Today's event is focused on sports betting technology and all the digital platforms driving this industry forward. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce our FanSaves co-founder and CEO, Shannon Ferguson, who will be our timekeeper today.
Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to have you all here. Thank you so much. As most of you actually might not know, I got my start in sports marketing in the sports betting industry. So this is very exciting for me, and I'm super excited to hear what all of our panelists and startups have to say today.
We would love to know where everyone is attending from today. So go ahead and engage with the other attendees in the chat room, and feel free to leave your Zoom, your LinkedIn link, URL. Before we meet our esteemed panelists for today's event, we'd like to take a moment to thank our partners for their support of this series. Sports Tech Business Digest is your home for recent news about emerging sports technology. The founder and author, Costa Cladionis, has over 20 years experience in technology focusing on the sports and entertainment business. Algonquin College, the sports business management program prepares students for an exciting career in the ever-growing multi-billion-dollar sports industry. The program positions students to work in the management and business aspects of the sports industry. Events.com is the preferred management technology supported events around the globe. The mobile-first ticketing and registration platform is an event organizer's one-stop shop for payment processing, digital marketing, and sponsorship needs. To learn more, visit events.com. The University Sports Business Alliance. The mission of the USBA is to connect and grow university sports business clubs through a supportive alliance that aims to develop professional networks and industry skills. Their goals include improving the education opportunities available to all aspiring sports business professionals. Go ahead and check them out on LinkedIn. And lastly, this event is powered by FanSaves. FanSaves is a sponsorship inventory asset, enabling sports teams, athletes, and organizations to activate and engage their fans with their sponsors. For more information about our platform, visit fansaves.com or connect with us on LinkedIn to set up a demo. A quick reminder before we begin, this event is being recorded and will be posted to our Sports Tech and Innovation Series YouTube channel later this week. Without further ado, I'm pleased to welcome our four esteemed panelists that will be taking part in our event today. Our first panelist is Marc Wilson, who is the founder of Athletic Venture Advisors and is active in the sports tech ecosystem, helping founders build and scale their companies. Marc, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome, great to hear your voice, great to have you here. Our second panelist today is Dan Hannigan-Daly. Dan is currently the director of Sportsbook product at DraftKings and has over 30 years in the sports betting industry. Dan is a graduate of Brock University and holds a degree in sports management. Dan, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today.
Yeah, no worries, excited to be here.
Awesome. Next up, we have Andrew McInnis. Andrew is a professional sports handicapper for WagerTalk, an industry-leading sports handicapping and betting information website. Andrew also does plenty of podcasting and web hosting through Patreon, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Music. Andrew is also the play-by-play commentator for Dalhousie University and St. Mary's University in the East Coast of Canada. Andrew, great to have you with us here today. Thank you so much for joining us for this event. Awesome. I know you're here. You might be on mute, but
sorry, Chris. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
No worries. Great to have you here with us today. And last but certainly not least, we have Angus Mcnabb. Angus is the founder of McNab Sports Consulting and has a wide variety of experience in sports business with over 20 years in the industry. In addition to his consulting firm, Angus is also the CEO and president of York 9 FC in the Canadian Premier League. Angus, it's so great to have you a part of this event today. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
No problem at all. Thanks so much for putting it together, guys, and great to meet everyone.
Absolutely. Thank you all for participating in today's panelist discussion. We look forward to hearing all of your insights and thoughts about where the industry is heading. So to kickstart this panelist discussion, why don't we start with Marc Wilson? And your question is, through your firm, Athletic Venture Advisors, what are the biggest challenges you've seen your sports betting startup clients go through?
I think the biggest thing, in an industry that's digital and obviously in it itself is sort of, going after a very legacy type business, there's sort of the two giants, the 2,000-pound gorillas in the room. I think part of the issue is trying to differentiate yourselves from, the groups that could, at least at the very early stages, the marketing budget of someone like DraftKings or FanDuel's could realistically buy these companies out 10 times over with their, monthly marketing budget. So, attacking the giants is probably the biggest issue. But then identifying yourself, where do you find your niche, whether it's in a specific sport, a specific sector? Is it something that, maybe is in line with some of those bigger groups? That's the biggest piece that we look for is, unless you have something that's going to differentiate you and attack those giants, maybe aligning with them or aligning with multiple groups like that is probably a good strategy and a longer term strategy, because you'll see companies out there whose maybe it's the back end technology that could be beneficial for white label or anything like that versus, I want to be the next DraftKings, I want to be the next FanDuel. That's a pretty short term plan, because you even if you get up to that point, acquisition is the likely end result of that.
Yeah, great insights there, Marc. Thank you for that. And I want to turn to Dan next. Back in March, most major leagues were forced to pause their seasons or cancel them outright due to the pandemic. Curious to know, what were some things that DraftKings was able to do to continue to engage with users in the absence of professional sports?
Yeah, so I think it was a really interesting time for us in that it actually provided unique opportunities where previously things like esports or novelty type sort of betting markets and or pools or fantasy contests were really sort of pushed to the side historically because of obviously the main sports that were going on. And so with the opportunity or almost necessity to then create compelling content that doesn't center around the major sports where it's kind of our bread and butter, we really were forced to start looking at those sports and leagues in a bit of a different light. And I think it really provided us the ability to move forward in a number of different realms. And I think from beginning of March to say mid-April, we actually ended up launching another say 5 or 6 esports type contests, and we're running $500,000 contests, which was more than we probably did in esports in an entire calendar year previously. And what was interesting is that a lot of that activity has stuck in some capacity, not necessarily at that same level, but certainly it showed us that there is actually more of an appetite here than maybe we initially anticipated. And so we subsequently doubled down and added a bunch more content in that sector as well. And another interesting area that sort of put us in the limelight in some respects is that a lot of our partners, whether it's a Turner Media or an MLB or an NFL, we're actually looking to us to figure out ways to engage their users, since they now really didn't have a mechanism like they normally would, which is the events, the big games that are going on. So we were able to try a couple different things, leveraging our technology to run free-to-play pools for the MLB Dream Bracket, where we would have simulated games, and you're basically picking what's going to happen for this whatever historic Seattle Mariners team against this historic Oakland A's team in a simulated contest. And so it really enabled us to further cement some of our relationships there and sort of double down on the technology aspect as far as how we provide opportunities to our partners as well.
Yeah, great to hear one of the giants in the industry being able to find that silver lining and keep fans engaged during these definitely unusual times. So really great insight there from you, Dan. Thank you. Turning to Andrew, as a professional sports handicapper, what digital tools, platform, or apps do you utilize when predicting picks, and how have you seen these tools evolve since you're starting the industry?
Well, Chris, I'm happy to follow up Dan with what he was saying, because for me, during the lockdown with the pause in major sports, for me, it was my job to kind of attach myself to a sport that I maybe had not handicapped or researched before. And for myself, it was the Korean baseball, and which something that DraftKings was certainly all about, and was advertising and making it known that they're also, available and there's lines going to be there. So I want to look for those niche products and niche apps that you can find online, because not every single website was going to be doing those and showing odds for them and kind of like stats and stuff like that. So of course there's WagerTalk, there's Covers, there's OddsShark, there's RotoWire. But I think the biggest thing that people have to focus on these days in this industry when creating a product is being very specific. I find people are trying to do too many things. I know there's one website, Pro Sports Doc. Their website is completely based off injuries. It's a former doctor from the LA Chargers, just trying to figure out what the actual injuries, how long somebody will be injured for, versus what their media reports say. And things like that are what really stick out to me.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's amazing that there's sites out there that provide those insights. So really great insights from yourself there. I appreciate that. Moving on to Angus, the CPL just successfully hosted their bubble tournament in the Maritime provinces here in Canada. I'm curious to know, what role does sports betting play in the overall fan engagement strategy of the CPL and its member clubs? And how do you see that evolving further as more sports betting platforms emerge?
So obviously we live within a very different regulatory landscape in Canada than the one that's emerging in the US. So that's the first bit, is we have to follow the regulation as it stands that way. But I think it's really interesting. So we're hearing about sort of DraftKings being asked how broadcasts can engage. Andrew saying, right, I've then got to find a source, a resource for data, for research. All of this comes back to data trends mapping. There was a piece on Sportsbook today from Carsten, the CEO of Sport Radar, speaking about how they're going the route of AI, machine learning, high technology to power deeper research and things like this. Now, where I think for me, I look at this with my sort of Canada soccer business, CPL hat on, away from specifically in our club, but the bigger picture of this and the whole sports landscape. We're speaking about an incredibly valuable asset that no one is monetizing or using correctly and engaging with fans right now. And that's data. That's the information and the power of being at the heart of this discussion. So yes, there's odds and pricing and handicappers, and people will have that discussion. But the actual sort of source input to all of this is data. So my sort of piece, and where we look at this, is the CPL. There is, I think, about to be an absolute explosion of activity within the sponsorship markets, and the brands that are very, very successful will be the ones that own that and own the dissemination of information to their fans, put that in their hands, power it. I was very fortunate. A lot of my formative years in the sports data industry were with Opta Sports Data and growing their North American business. Opta Joe is now, I think, the 4th or 5th biggest business-to-business Twitter account in the UK. With over 1 million followers. And it's because it has a style and a delivery of sports data information and fact that fuels fandom. Brands, sponsors, people who are looking to engage with sport should really be looking to drill down into this. And whether it's on the sport, where it's the betting companies owning this themselves, or whether it's the big technology players in the B2B space who need to build brand awareness. There's fantastic opportunities, and it's getting on the crest of that wave. I think is going to be really, really interesting over the next. People would say 5 years, but I think we've seen the speed that the sports industry and generally technology industry moves at now. That I think we're looking at 18 to 24 months. Yeah, and that's a really good transition into my next question to Marc. We're seeing the industry really be revolutionized and accelerated by this whole pandemic digitally. So my question for Marc is, from your opinion, from working with sports tech startups, how has the pandemic accelerated or decelerated innovation in the sports betting space, and why?
Yeah, I think, and I might be thinking of this differently than everyone else. What really has happened with the pandemic and things shutting down, and it's sort of twofold. One, there's a lot of people who are next to their phones, next to their inboxes that normally wouldn't be. And in some cases, looking to justify, or at least looking for opportunities that they may have, pushed aside primary to their focus of their business, right? So, it's obviously from a communication standpoint really ramped up. Obviously, there are plenty of negatives, but the positives are the communication piece that has really focused on, we're sort of having to change, status quo is thrown out the window, whether it be for budget reasons or, restriction, travel, things like that. It's sort of forced a lot of people to look at, maybe $120,000 a year for a licensing agreement is a little egregious. Is there something out there that we could potentially use as a cheaper option? Is there a way that we could monetize this? So it really forced people who are on the fence about change or making a drastic move in a certain direction. Gives you the opportunity to probably look at more than you would normally see, and B, take the next 6 months, 18 months, whatever this may be, to try something new that maybe you didn't have the restrictions or didn't have the flexibility to do so when you're knee deep or you're head deep in your season. So, the communication is the biggest thing for me. Yes, we obviously had a lot of negatives come out of it, because without sports, there's no investment in sports. Without the things that were happening in regular avenues, there was still obviously the risk on the investment side of things, but we certainly had a lot more open doors than we normally would have on business development and things like that. So, once the wallets open back up again, that's where our primary business comes from. But from a business development and a communication standpoint, the doors that were normally shut in the walled garden that is sports, all of a sudden we're open and we're accessible.
Yeah, really great perspective there from a startup advisor, someone that's been in the trenches with these startups. So I really appreciate that. Turning back to Dan, this past July, DraftKings was announced as the official sports betting partner of the Premier Lacrosse League and its championship series. I was wondering if you could talk about that partnership a little bit and the strategy behind partnering with teams and leagues to further grow the DraftKings brand.
Yeah, so actually kind of doubling down on the prior comments from Marc, I think what we've seen with COVID has definitely been, from my perspective anyways, a bit of an acceleration from the teams and leagues and media partners as well of DraftKings, and sort of the byproduct of that now going forward is what was previously sort of off the side and maybe not necessarily desired, or at least it would take a long time to get to. Now it's actually becoming commonplace. And so example of that would be in May, there was the match, and we were fortunate to partner with Turner Media and just get odds on the TV screen, which isn't that crazy, but prior to COVID, that would have taken absolute crazy amounts of effort to get live. Whereas fast forward 6-7 months, now if you open up the PGA Tour Live app, there's odds for the various providers or partners of PGA Tour. And I think, sort of going back to your question around the relationship with the PLL, I think what we've seen similarly with sort of the major U.S. sports being shut down for some period of time is that there has now become a lot more opportunities for the smaller, more niche sports to come in and actually find a bit larger piece of the pie where otherwise they wouldn't be able to. And in order to do that, there's a couple things you kind of need to lean into. One is obviously technology and understanding that, if you really want to engage fans and especially a younger demographic, you need to have great digital experiences and make it easier for users or fans to find your content. And then sort of the other avenue is around betting and gaming, and knowing that that's sort of on the up and up in a lot of respects, especially as legislation and regulation changes in the US. And so DraftKings, obviously we've looked to partner with, a number of different entities in that space, be it, the behemoths like an NFL or a group like the PLL that gives us a bit of an opportunity to push some of those boundaries and explore a little bit more. And we did the Nathan's hot dog eating contest as well. And there's a lot of unique opportunities that we're able to leverage and test some different things, and then use that as almost a case study to then go to, a PGA Tour or an NFL or someone who has a little bit more at risk, so to speak, or maybe are a little bit more traditional in how they view the world. So yeah, definitely seen significant acceleration from COVID, and we're certainly well positioned, I think, to continue doubling down on those partnerships and creating these exceptional experiences in tandem with the various leagues that are out there.
Yeah, it's really cool to hear about DraftKings diversifying their partnerships and testing new things and seeing that stick even as we begin to head out of the pandemic. So really great insights there. I appreciate that, Dan. Turning back to Andrew, through channels like WagerTalk, how have you seen technology, whether that be podcasting or apps, make sports betting more accessible to fans? And how does Canada differ from the United States as far as popularity per capita?
Well, first and foremost for me, Chris, I mean, being one of the younger handicappers in general, probably out there, and at WagerTalk especially, I was brought on specifically for the podcasting and hosting ability and the information about this technology stuff that, a lot of the other people that have been in this field and experts for so long might not have been used to doing. I think it's really changing the industry. And, I look at sports betting from two ways. One are the people that are genuinely looking at it all week long. They're betting the NFL on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, not just Saturday morning or Sunday morning when they wake up. A lot of times we say anyone betting it, an hour before the game, you're losing the value, you're losing all that kind of stuff. Those are the recreational guys that are just waiting a little bit longer. So, the entertainment aspect has really been ramped up. And I think that's what's really changing the industry, is because all these podcasts that you're seeing now, the ability to network, the fact that certain podcasts that I listen to will have directors of DraftKings, director of FanDuel, director of Circa, director of South Point, all these different types of sports books, and be able to have different media members. It really helps you be able to connect because, for Dan and myself, we're on complete different sides of the counter. I'm trying to beat the book and he is, a part of the book, so, but there's also the people that are just the entertainment aspect. And I think that when you look at how podcasting has really evolved, it's really shaping the industry. I'm not sure if the panel will completely agree with me, but, I think in about 20 to 25 years, here in the East Coast of Canada, I'm going to be flipping the channels to watch hockey at night. And there's going to be two channels. One is going to be the regular, hockey night in Canada game. And the second one is going to be the hockey night in Canada from a sports betting perspective, the intermission show, talking about the live odds, talking about the live numbers. And that's way in the future, but that's really, how we've really gone. And as far as versus Canada and the United States, I'll put it this way. There's a lot of fine lines here, so I don't want to cross anything, but anybody who wants to gamble is gambling. That's kind of what I would say. It's growing. Like Dan said, different states are gradually progressing with it. And I think that with the pandemic, it almost seems like it's progressing and speeding up because other states that are missing out on that revenue and on that action aren't really being involved with it. But other than that, I think that this industry in North America alone is really growing. And I think it's better to keep it within North America because for right now, like I said, anybody that really wants to gamble is already doing it.
Yeah, really great insights. And you brought up something interesting and it made a good segue to our next question to Angus. And from your experience in consulting, what trends have you seen in the sports betting industry? And with restrictions being lifted on sports betting across the United States, like how big could this industry grow in popularity?
It could be absolutely colossal. And there's no hiding that for any of us. And I think when we draw back on a couple of points that people have made there in terms of, so will we have second screen experiences and things around betting? Yes, we will, but that's just not betting. That's the personalization of content and the democratization of content we're seeing right now in apps. Follow your team on sign up, get relevance to you and what you're interested in. So it's an extension of personalization and where we go there. So I completely believe that. I think it's cultural as well. I think there's been stigma attached to betting for years because it's been a system of people betting on credit and people betting with slightly larger minimums. I grew up in the UK where someone used to come and knock your door and you'd pay £1 and you'd play the pools. And it's not expensive. It's low stakes, social gaming, things that come into it. And the legalized market sort of removes a lot of the dangers that exist that are very, very basic. It's just a case of people are no longer betting on credit. They're actually sort of betting with properly funded accounts in the same way they are and sort of making any other transaction. They need the money in the account to deposit it to then go bet. So that's great. It's tracked, it's regulated, And the regulation of the industry is what will help and see it grow. Campaigns in the UK, we're already there in terms of like half time in the UK in the Premier League. You've got Bet365 giving you odds updates and sort of in their game content, in their advertising, betting on next goal scorer, smaller stakes, sort of proposition bets that exist to excite and engage. And I think it was William Hill in the UK who had the sort of slogan, "It matters more when there's money on it." And that's true in terms of like, I will watch a game where I have sort of no horse in it, like quite frankly, in terms of where it's just two random teams and it's a game that's on and it's content that's available because I'm a fan of sports. And I'd love to have the ability to have a $1 $5 bet on things a quarter or across the entire game to keep it fun, to keep it light, to keep it interesting. So I think that and the sort of innovation in the industry to gamify it, to engage, to entertain, as we've all said, we'll see it grow and really, really sort of move on to next levels. And I think leagues and teams have a real part to play in that, in the innovation of it. We spoke about Premier Lacrosse League and even actually the sort of very short-lived XFL or the Alliance of American Football. They were doing very, very interesting things with in-game sort of data, entertainment, creation of additional proposition bets around speed, these kind of things that fans want to know. And these are great things as well for the athletes themselves because they're an insight and a look into performance. So having a bet on exceptional athletic performance is a great thing. We're going to learn new things about athletes. We're going to create new heroes, new narratives. And that's only good for the sport. And that's really great for all of us who are passionate about the sports industry in general and our own specific narrow love of one particular sport.
Yeah, great reply, Angus. Really great insights and cool to get an international perspective on the topic as well. So thank you so much for that. At this point in the event, I'd like to thank all of our panelists for their incredible insights and perspectives about the sports betting industry and technology that's changing the industry. Before we introduce the founders who will be presenting their startups for feedback from our expert panelists, let me tell you how this whole section of the event goes down. Each startup will have 3 minutes to present their company, which will be followed by feedback from each of our panelists. Dollar will start us off by presenting first, followed by Bookit Sports. Then BETSPERTS will present last, followed by feedback from our panelists. So, all right, let's get started. First up, we have dollar. Tom, if you could go ahead and share your screen. Your 3 minutes will begin once you start speaking.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Everybody, welcome. Thank you for being here. Hey, listen, I'm your crazy uncle at the holidays in the room today. A couple things I wrote down from the panelists. Be different than the big guys. And it matters more when there's money on it. Listen, what I'm about to show you is a pivot. It's a separate category that we've created by design from the beginning. This is our old tagline, but I thought it apropos for today. This ain't your fantasy, you are the game. I'm going to show you an app that allows Joe Sports Guy to be in the match themselves. I'm talking about this brand new category that we've created as a peer-to-peer skills challenge, that you're actually wagering your money on your skill against somebody else. We're starting with golf. In our roadmap, we thought it the best. This slide depicts how we all started between myself and the other co-founder. He and I had had a money golf game going on for a long time. He said to me in the summer of 2018, when we met in a restaurant, boy, wouldn't it be great if we could have our money game on 2 different courses? And so what we've done initially with the game of golf is we have pivoted the entire experience of wagering against your buddy in the game of golf. We've removed the restriction of time and place, exactly what online poker did to the poker industry. Okay, so we've developed this thing called remote play. The app takes care of all of the wage management, all of the math, all of the challenges. You can bet multiple people on multiple courses at the same time. You can also play together. So we've really pivoted and changed this whole notion of what traditionally everybody's doing in the fantasy market is third-party bet, right? I'm going to throw $100 down on Tom Brady doing X, Y, and Z, and hopefully that gets completed. I get money back. This is 100% based on my ability against whoever I am wagering against, whether I'm with them or not. So we are unbelievably excited about this. So let me hit forward. Here's what we knew, right? Most golfers bet. Even to this day, we couldn't find a golf skills wagering app. And we all know that, or we may know that golf is trying to grow and needs more excitement. We went live in January of 2020 across the US. But we started asking ourselves some questions before we went live, right? Could we build something? What if we could do something that again removed the time and the location from the experience? We contacted the USGA and asked them to verify our algorithms in and around how we actually index and supply course handicaps for people on 2 different courses. They validate it. And so, like I said before, we virtualized the experience just like online poker did. All right. So here's where we're going. Product next steps, voice control wearables, full GPS. But the biggest thing about what we're doing is we're going to blend our B2B offering, leagues, charities, men's teams, women's teams, golf courses, by supplying a very simple tournament and league management software web application that will complement the handheld mobile device so that we have real-time live scoring. Think largest golf tournament in the world every week that you are participating in. I'll give you one more feature that's coming out. You can see it in our app if you download it today. By the way, the app is fully free. You can find it from our website at d3golf.com. That's D, the number 3, the word golf.com. And it's completely free. You can load your wallet and bet your friends. But one of the biggest things we want to do is we also want to provide that experience of that customer being inside the ropes, right? Being able to play against a celebrity or a PGA pro. We have several on our board already. You can check that out from our website. Holly Saunders of Fame and Fortune from Fox Sports, as well as PGA Tour pro Nick O'Hearn. We're working on all kinds of other relationships. So extremely excited about it. So listen, here's my contact information. If anybody needs it, would like more information. I know that's a quick brush, but I'll leave it there and open up for any questions or give it back to you, Chris, to drive forward.
Awesome. Great presentation, Tom. Thank you so much. Just a quick reminder to unshare your screen. And for feedback, why don't we begin with Marc?
Yeah, so I'll let the experts talk about the logistics side of things, but one of my concerns, and it's really not a concern unless you don't have an answer for it, in dealing with, peer-to-peer and amateurs and things like this, and as someone who's played in plenty of tournaments myself, how do you sort of prevent the sandbagging aspect of, your own personal handicap versus, fine if you're friends, like I know how good my friends are at golf, but from a, broader perspective, how am I, I'm handicapped at +14, but realistically I'm more like a scratch, that sandbagging aspect of not knowing the person you're sort of competing against, and not having that sort of, we all have it, Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson's information. We know what that is. We can compare, historical data. You can't compare historical data of some guy you've never met and who doesn't have statistics on them. So how do you prevent the sandbagging and unjustifiable, handicapping?
Number one question I get all around the world. How do you thwart the cheaters? It's extremely easy. All right. Number one, how does the USGA do it now for amateurs? Right. Interestingly enough, when we presented to the USGA on our app, they went bat crazy. They couldn't believe what we were about to do. How do you cheat the USGA? You add strokes so that your index is higher. How do you cheat in my app? You drop your score, right? So if you win today and I don't know you, shame on me, right? However, our app in version 2 in the next couple of months, we are going to roll out in your profile your tendency, right? We're not allowed to use, since we can't produce a USGA index, but when you put your score as in, I'm going to use the same math and index you anyway. So if you say you're a 14 and in your last 10 rounds tell me you're playing to a 5, I'm going to be able to see that in your profile. And the more you cheat, the lower your index is going to go. So long term, you're going to do yourself a disservice by trying to play to a lower score because I'm going to adjust it.
Okay, perfect. Great question, Marc. Great response, Tom. I just want to remind all our panelists to try and keep their comments to one minute, just to keep on track of time for everybody's schedules. We'll move on next to Dan and get your thoughts about the presentation.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an interesting concept. I think I'd have sort of similar questions just around like, how do you, I mean, maybe you don't need to, but how do you validate that what a user is putting in is actually accurate? And then I guess my other question would be like, obviously you're not going to charge a commission or a rate because then you're essentially running full-on sports betting, and that's a lot more restricted from a regulatory perspective. So like, how does this actually make money for yourselves?
So thanks very much for asking that, Dan. We have 12 profit centers. There are 4 business lines incorporated into this. You're correct. We can't take a rate, but we can charge a game admin fee. We don't have game admin fees started yet, just because we want to do that and turn on all our profit centers when we release version 2, somewhere around April 2021. And so great question there. But yes, we have all of the abilities because we are not termed as gaming or gambling. We've done something, we're in the middle of 2 patents, one to be finalized here pretty quick. We have a provisional that we just sent in last week on what we've been validated from the banking industry. So we are not gaming or gambling at all, nor are we categorized that way.
I'm just gonna jump in. I'm just gonna jump in as the timekeeper. Tom, you're doing awesome, but we're gonna leave this time strictly to the panelists to give feedback, and you guys are definitely welcome to talk after. But in the spirit of time and fairness to our other panelists, we're gonna keep it only to the panelists talk, and so we'll ask our startups not to answer any questions at this time.
Okay, moving along, we have Andrew. So Andrew, we'd love to hear your feedback on the presentation.
First of all, Tom, I can respect anybody that can present something like that in such a short period of time, because it seems like, especially with a concept like that, it's hard to get information and an idea out so quickly. And combining a sport like that with the betting with your friends, for somebody of any age, but I know for myself, just getting into golf and going out with some of my friends that are way better than me or equal skill level, we're betting a 6-pack for every 3 holes or betting a case of beer or something like that. So my question to you isn't as much about the sandbagging, is more so just about, like we said, about it's easy to do it with your friends. I think that I love the aspect that you said about comparing it to the online poker. Instead of meeting up together to play poker, doing it online. I just have a tough time, like the rest of the guys do, about the whole not knowing the other person, or as far as comparing the different courses. But I love the concept because I think it brings a whole new exciting aspect to it, especially for people that play rounds on their own. And they can definitely kind of create a competitive aspect like that. But I saw in the little Apple Watch, or whatever it was saying, like, I bet $100 that this guy might not hit the green in real time. I'm just curious how those little miniature prop bets would be effective versus the whole 18 holes.
I definitely invite you guys to continue this discussion after the event. Just in the spirit of time, we have to move along to Angus, but great question, Andrew. And I definitely recommend you to connect and continue the conversation, but would love to hear your feedback, Angus.
Yeah, as a golfer, I enjoyed it. I think my 2 concerns are concerns that the game of golf has, just full stop, in speed of play. Using a Apple Watch GPS system, like when you play anyway, I think it does slow it down for scorekeeping. So speed of play, and then latency to place bets and things like that would be my concerns. But it's certainly an interesting concept.
Good stuff. Great presentation, Tom. Great feedback from all of our panelists. And moving on to our next presenting startup, we have Bookit Sports. Trent, if you could share your screen, your 3 minutes will begin once you start speaking.
All right, can you see my screen all right?
Yeah.
Cool. All right, guys. Hey, my name is Trent Attyah, and I'm the CEO and founder of Bookit Sports, which is a sports betting social media platform. So I don't have to go too much into the rise of legal sports betting in the U.S. since it became legal in 2018, but we're seeing 22 states have been legalized since that federal ban was lifted, which has drastically shifted the rise of mobile betting and the engagement that users are currently partaking in with mobile betting on the go and not having to go directly to the casino. And so with that, by 2024, the online world gambling market is expected to surpass $94 billion. And with that, I saw a statistic last year that said from Statista, they conducted a survey of 10,000 sports bettors and asked why they placed bets on sports. And 60% of those surveys answered a social reason as to why they placed bets on sports. But with that, sports gambling is social, as proven by that statistic, yet there is no centralized platform for gamblers to socialize or get consolidated information and engage with the entire betting community until now, the launch of Bookit Sports, which is coming out on November 1st. What is Bookit? Bookit Sports is the first media-centric social platform that's dedicated specifically for one thing only, and that's sports betting. And Bookit Sports is essentially going to be a game changer for the sports betting community. Users will be able to share bet slips, track picks, and spark insight and engagement, easy to use tracking resources to improve your betting records, aggregating news sources from all across the industry into one consolidated place. Various avenues of engagement, that's our biggest value proposition, is providing the avenues of engagement for the sports betting community to actively get in touch with new bettors, to make new friends in the industry, essentially, to ride with other people who have the same bet as you. Lots of people love engaging on gambling Twitter and Instagram, but these are platforms that are not ever going to be catered specifically for sports betting. So users will be able to create an account, create and share bet slips, compare their records with their friends, experts, and analysts via a community leaderboard, generate a following of your own, and as well as posting engaging content such as photos, videos, text, highlights, bet slips, you name it, you can post it. And that's really what we're doing at Bookit Sports, is just really promoting engagement and really providing those avenues for the entire community to engage on a personal level and really essentially make a new group of friends within on the Bookit Sports app. So how we are going to make money and our business model is going to evolve over time. But our goal when we launch on November 1st is to essentially validate that there is a need for this concept, that the community is actively craving something like Bookit Sports. And beyond that, we are going to extend the product to in-app purchases, having premium features, as well as making affiliate partnerships with books, teams, and leagues, as well as advertisers who want to target this specific niche market of sports bettors. And so over time, I came up with this idea last year. And since then, I've got 17 people on my team with me. And these are really the core 6 that you're looking at here, passionate group of co-founders who excel in all areas from development, back-end, front-end technology to the business development, media, marketing side of things. And so currently right now, I'm sitting in my office here in Reno, Nevada, after we got accepted into a startup accelerator program that I've been going through for the last few months. RNOX is the name of the program. We've raised $500K in seed funding, which has allowed us to essentially get an MVP on the App Store on November 1st. And so without further ado, I'll leave it to questions for you guys, but that is essentially Bookit Sports in a nutshell.
Awesome. Thank you, Trent. Great presentation. Just a quick reminder to unshare your screen. And for feedback, we'll start with Andrew.
First of all, Trent, great presentation. I think that this is something that definitely the industry needs more of. I've seen a lot of different, apps similar, but I think what the biggest difference that I think you're trying to do specifically is bring everyone together. You know, I get people messaging me all the time, you know, about a crazy story they had about a bet that they won or lost, or asking me, hey, what do you think about this bet? Like I've been saying, it's so much more of a recreational thing. And that goes with Angus with the CPL as well. You know, people are going to be going to a game and betting it recreationally. I guess my quick question I'd ask you, which is very generic and or very general, but versus something like the Action Network and that kind of stuff, how do you really keep the community engaged, and how do you plan on having somebody, let's say, post their bet slip and then other people respond to them and engage with them?
Trent, if you could just give the most abbreviated answer to that and then continue the conversation after. And just a quick reminder to our panelists, if you could just kind of like give comments or give your feedback, and we'll continue with questions following the event. But go ahead, Trent, and give your answer.
Real quick. We differ from the Action Network essentially because there's no centric feed around being able to create your own content on their app. And so that's really what we're going to allow our users to do, is make a name for themselves and generate a following.
Perfect. Dan, I'd love to hear your thoughts and feedback on the presentation.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, obviously, congrats on the pending launch. That's a huge milestone. So something to look forward to there for sure. I think the one sort of piece of feedback that I would have is a question around like, how do you actually, it's sort of similar to the golf one I had earlier, is like, how do you validate what a user is actually putting in there is actually accurate? Like you could have someone come in like a Vegas Dave and just say, yeah, these are all my picks. I'm 90 and 10, and where everyone knows that that's unrealistic. So that would be an interesting challenge. And obviously you could hook up with bookmakers and the sports books of the world, but we like to keep our data with us as well. So something to think about anyways, but congrats.
Thank you.
Great feedback, Dan. Moving on, love to hear from Angus.
Listen, I like it in terms of anything that's about community, bringing people together is great. My only worry would be, we've seen the football Facebook, we've seen it with a Sport Lobster, with guys like that started up all over the world. I think you've got to go on a very, very quick customer acquisition ramp and user ramp up to then sell to one of the big boys who are buying your database. Otherwise, you are probably looking at an affiliate model, revenue generation piece, and things that sit there. And listen, that's interesting. If you're a super affiliate, you can make a lot of money. But just sharing, doing whatever else, like, is the networking interactivity bit of it already there and created? And it's just trends and sort of what is pop culture and what sits and what's discussed on them sort of varies as tastes change and adapt.
Very cool. Great feedback, Angus. And to round out this discussion about Bookit Sports, love to hear from Marc and your thoughts.
Sure. So I want to touch on something that Angus said prior, and I know that Dan will agree because I know, DraftKings is very much into the fan engagement side of things. When we're looking at opportunities, like I said at the beginning, to differentiate, we quite often try to tie, the low barrier of entry type betting and gaming and gambling and things like that for the person who's, not the big fish, not the shark, not the person throwing down on big opportunities, where it's more the social stuff, more the stuff that Angus talked about, and having it tied together in a community for a fan engagement purpose. And sometimes that's, no money down. It's, opinion-based stuff, or, prop bets that are just, for your own sake. So, I think that the social part of it, being involved and communicating, might be a good place for that person who doesn't bet, maybe wants to sort of try it out, or for that low barrier of entry. And I think that's probably going to be a big opportunity. Obviously, just like everyone mentioned, the affiliate model is a revenue generator, but I think the social aspect of it might be, you'll likely have more non-gamblers than your sharks.
Awesome. Really great feedback there from all of our panelists. Thank you so much for all those insights. And thank you, Trent, for a great presentation. To learn more about Bookit Sports, follow them on LinkedIn or check out their website. And moving right along, we're going to get into BETSPERTS. BETSPERTS is going to present next. So thank you, Reid. Great presentation. If you could please share your screen, and once you begin speaking, we'll start. So, are you good to go, Reid?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just had to run and switch computers. One just crashed. I have a little blurry camera right now, so I apologize for that.
No worries. This is show business.
Yeah. I was running across the room here. Let me share my screen, and hopefully everything's up and operational right now.
Not a problem.
Let me know if you can see that.
Yeah, I can see that now. I can hear you. You're good to go.
Great, perfect. Appreciate you having us here today. And here we go. I agree with a lot of what Trent just said, to be honest with you. And it's interesting that we're going back to back here because we agree very much on the social side. I think from our perspective, there is one company out here doing a lot of the social connectivity and has been doing it for quite a while, as we are currently the largest social network for sports gamblers in the United States. So it's definitely a vision that we both share. So I appreciate all the insight Trent just provided. But from our perspective, I think we view ourselves and have been told a little bit like we're it could be a LinkedIn of sports gambling concept, right? You have that social interaction, and behind that social interaction, you have a profile and a resume of a sports gambler. For us, the way, I know one question that was just asked, the way that we ensure that everything what people are saying or entering on pick tracking platform is verifiable. There's no editing, there's no deleting. That's what the largest pick tracking platform in the country at this point would be Action on just pick tracking. You can enter and delete after games happen, or we don't let any editing happen for any sort of reason. And we're very transparent. Everyone's profile is open and public, but we do have a very large group that is connecting every single day, talking back and forth on our feed. So I do think from our perspective, we are doing quite well on the social side. And where we're at today, we started in, let's call it 2018. We soft launched the last time there actually was a March Madness. We moved to a hard launch last football season and accepted or raised a seed round in early 2020, which was fortunate timing due to the pandemic, but we were able to capitalize and release some new tech launches, which is a really, really exciting feature for us. It allows a user to upgrade, and if they're interested, upgrade all the way to the top subscription where they can sell their picks. It's a marketplace. They determine the prices, and we take a small business fee transaction from it, but they determine the prices. We don't ever say buy picks from BETSPERTS or encourage anyone. We give you all the data. We let you see their entire history, and the customer is able to make their own choices based on pricing and based on information that we provide. But again, BETSPERTS is never going to tell you who to pick. We're going to sort out the information and sort out the leaderboard. I think I have it up here, if you can see that. Just a quick 30-second demo. There is a feed where people are talking back every single day throughout the day during the games. Chris Felica on the platform, good one to end on. A full mock sportsbook. If you look at the NFL side of it, going, and you can even look at trends, stats, picks. You can see everyone's picks that are on the platform, their record in every single category. But it's all very open, transparent. You look at your own profile. And mine, I'm not the greatest bettor in the world, but if you go to something specific like the major leagues instead of NFL, or even more specific than that, you can get down to the American League, the AL Central, and you can see that I might be all right in the AL Central, especially down with the White Sox 13-9, because that's my team, right? So we provide you all this information. We provide you anyone who is on the platform, they show up and submit their picks, and we report that information back out to you. But at this point, we have got a great user base, and we continue to expand that.
Awesome. Thank you, Reid. Great presentation. Just a quick reminder to unshare your screen. There you go. Perfect. For feedback, why don't we begin with Dan?
Yeah, I mean, I have some awareness of BETSPERTS. Unfortunately, when you're going through the demo, you weren't sharing, or we couldn't see the screen, or at least I couldn't. But I think what you guys are doing is certainly pretty interesting. Definitely similar in nature to Bookit Sports, so some nice competition there. But yeah, in general, I agree quite a bit with the I guess maintenance of the social aspect of sports betting and leveraging the massive communities, especially as it sort of comes out from the dark in the US and beyond. So congrats on the recent releases as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Dan. Love to hear, Angus, your thoughts on the presentation.
Yeah, it's sort of covered before in terms like that, very, very similar to Bookit, and an interesting product, maybe a little bit further on than Bookit with their user acquisition strategy. And it's going to be a race for them both, quite frankly, because I think there's going to be a preferred piece in that space. And then you're going to see the big boys' money come in and really look at sort of social engagement and who is the sort of the real conduit to the conversation in the sports betting space.
Awesome. Thank you, Angus. Marc, would love to hear your feedback.
Yeah, I guess the one really interesting piece that I thought took from it was the sort of, putting yourself on the platform with the intention of maybe selling your experience. And that's certainly an avenue that, from a content creator standpoint, you probably open yourself up to a multitude of opportunities and risk as well. But, I think that having a stakeholder that is also the end user is always an interesting piece. Outside of the social aspect of it, I think that there's going to be ways to mitigate that risk maybe, but I think it's really interesting giving the users the opportunity to be a big part of it, and maybe make some money out of it. So I think that's a really interesting piece.
Outstanding. Great feedback all around from all of our panelists. And to round it out, I'd love to hear, Andrew, your thoughts.
First of all, great product, and it's one of those things I think I would like to have more of a discussion with both Trent and Reid, because it's a little bit involves my space, as far as the social aspect and the selling it. I think the two things that I'd really say, which you guys would both already know, but for Reid, is number one, the whole verification thing is just one of those things everyone's going to talk about. But how do you? I'm not concerned about people actually being verified. I know how the system works. I know how the back end works. Is more so just getting people to the app. The world is based off apps now. And then Dan touched on gambling Twitter, and we talked about that. Why would someone want to move away from the gambling Twitter, talk about their plays, and try and sell their picks on there versus moving to that app? I think is my biggest question, how to move towards the advertising part.
Amazing feedback, Andrew. I'd love for you guys to continue the conversation. Great feedback from all of our panelists. And with that, this concludes our fourth event of our Sports Tech and Innovation Series powered by FanSaves. I want to thank all of our panelists for taking the time out of their busy schedules to give their insights on the sports betting technology. And I'd also like to thank all of the startups for presenting their great companies here today. I invite you to join us next Thursday, November 5th at 1 p.m. for our next event focusing on collegiate technology. And a quick reminder that this event will be posted to our FanSaves YouTube channel later this week. Thank you again to all of our partners and for everyone who attended this event today. To learn more about FanSaves or to request a demo, please reach out to me on LinkedIn or contact us through our website. Follow our social media pages for more updates and information about future events. And have a great rest of your afternoon. Thank you for being here.